Morning, everyone. So in this video, we are going to talk explicitly about Mad Gits, their rules, how to use them, how to maybe abuse them. I've actually attempted to make this video 2 times before, and I made like 30, 40-minute videos on it, and I realized that I got a rules wrong, and so one of my tricks was different. So I kind of waited till I cleared up all the rules, or at least I think I cleared up all the rules. And so all the tricks I have are legal. I've asked the rules team like 6 questions to make sure. And I feel like I forgot a trick. We'll see. Maybe as I go, I'll remember one. So let's look at the Mad Gits rules first so we can get a little bit acquainted with them. And so how I view this is I have a list of at least 6 tricks I'll show you on UB. But I don't think it's these aren't like do this one, it's about finding the situation. Let me rephrase that. Knowing the rule and how it interacts, looking at a situation and seeing how to take advantage of it is way more important than like the situations I'm going to show you specifically. I'm going to show you examples that expose the way the rules for fanatics work or Mad Gits work. It's not like, so one of the examples I know I'm going to show you is not that realistic to come up, but the situation could arise in the muck of a game, and if you can recognize it, you can apply the trick and maybe kill some people for it. So let's just look at their rules real quick. We'll look at Ricochet. Models Ricochet cannot charge enemy units. Yep, and can move through all units, friend and foes if they were open terrain. Sure. If it ended on contact with another unit or within 1 inch of a unit, it has moved through. So there's a big one right away. Its move distance is extended. So everyone knows this rule. You roll the Fanatic, and we're not talking about random movement ones after. We're talking about when you throw them, because that's the actual part you can control more so. So when you throw a Fanatic, if you hit a unit with the distance you roll, you do the hits to it, and you're going to keep going 1 inch forward until you find a place you can land that's 1 inch away from enemies. If you don't hit the enemies with the actual roll, you won't do damage to them, but you can still move through them, which is good to know. Until it makes 1 inch from all other enemy units. All other units, not enemy. Also, we'll talk about this later. If after the extended move, the model would end up with 1 inch of impassable terrain or in contact with the board edge, you die. Yeah, that's fine. If there is no legal position, okay, this is the next big one. So the first one, if you hit a unit, you keep going till you get out of 1 inch of people. Though that doesn't count for other Fanatics because they count as open terrain. So you can land like right next to another Fanatic. That being said, that's not the most important rule here. Basically, just keep extending. And if you die to terrain, you die to terrain. Sometimes you do it on purpose to like hit the board edge, so you just die. So maybe you're throwing something near your board edge or something. Like you throw it at an ambush or I don't know. Anyway, the big one is the next one. If there is no legal position where it follows the unit spacing rule when backtracking the model's move, based on the rules for random movement, immediately remove the model's casualty. So when it doesn't hit a unit, it backtracks like a random mover. So if you don't hit a unit, you back up like you do with pursuing, and then if you go too far back, you'll die. So if you actually can't clear 1 inch of your own unit, you're going to die. I like 100% believe that's true. But you'll see that this rule comes into play several times in the tricks I'm going to show you to kind of manipulate where you can put your Fanatics. Enemy units cannot charge them. You can charge through them. Let me see if there's anything. Unit, yeah. In addition, they can move on to 3 units. Yep. However, if the unit, yep. If you land on them, it triggers. It triggers things. If okay. So one thing to note is that it doesn't talk about it here. Move the casualties not triggers by moves that can move through units. No flying. Yep. And let's just quickly go to the Mad Gits section. Yep. Not deployed. So, thing to know, it's not deployed. So, it's not affected by any spells while it's not deployed. So, you can't cast Flaming Swords on yourself and get +1 his Fanatics. You can do it if they're outside the unit and, like, okay, so for example, you can throw the Fanatic, right? Well, it's in the shooting phase. So, or maybe in okay, it's not a, let's just say there's a Fanatic alive in the second turn and it's in a perfect position that the enemy's going to hit it. You can cast a spell on it. You can cast Breath Weapon on it if you want to cast a Breath Weapon. But It also, the no shooting spells don't work on it. It's not a shooting attack. With new Relentless Banner, you can still use Fanatics. It just happens in the shooting phase. I mean, even for the stand shoot, it's specifically not a shooting attack. So, whatever the number 3 from Witchcraft doesn't work on Mad Gits. And no but like Chilling Howl doesn't work unless the Mad Gits is already out in the open. So that's good. You don't take pan checks caused by them. That's actually pretty important, to be fair. Or otherwise affected in the game in any way. So it specifically says it can't be. So you can use it as a stand shoot, which we'll talk about, and you can use it, and you have to throw them if you're not engaged, not fleeing within 8 inches of the enemy unit. So you can throw them when you rally, or shaken. So that's good to know too. You can't fail charge, and not release Fanatics, but also it's good to know that you have the option. You could reform if you rallied like super wide, assuming you had the movement to do it, and throw Fanatics. That's interesting stuff there. Okay. The resolve one at a time, place just outside base contact with concealing unit, and choose a direction to move the Mad Git, blah, blah. Cannot bring the Mad Git time with concealing unit. You can't throw it through your own unit. There was a rule that I was looking for. Where is it? Where is the rule I'm looking for? There's a rule, maybe it's in Shambolic? Oh, yeah. I missed it. Sorry. For the purpose of all units engaged... Okay. If a unit's boundary is contacted by the ricochet model's initial move, excluding an extension of the move distance needed, this unit suffers X hits. For this purpose, all units engaged in the same combat are treated as a single unit. The owner of the model with the ricochet distributes the hits between all units as evenly as possible, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So if you hit your own unit, you're going to deliver, 50-50. If you roll 5, you go 3-2, whatever. The big thing to note about this rule is it only divides hits on the initial move of the Mad Git. So whether it's the random move or when you throw it. You'll see the example, but if you combat reform onto a Fanatic, you take all the hits. So that's good to know. I used to think it was the other way around, so I used to say, you can charge a Great Green Idol at a dragon, throw 2 Fanatics through the combat so that it hits both of them, and then you reform the Great Green Idol onto the Fanatics so they both take 2d6 and then half. So you basically, you hit your own model, but you hurt the Great Green Idol, or the dragon. That doesn't work anymore. But that opens up some other cooler tricks, or maybe not cooler, but interesting tricks as well. So that's good to know. You only split the hits on the initial move. If somebody combat reforms on the Fanatic, so you could... I mean, that's a trick we can talk about. I actually didn't put it as one of my examples, so maybe I should have. So let's just go straight into the examples. So I set up some examples here, and we're going to just go one at a time. We're going to go simple first, and then we're going to get a little more complex ones. And again, we're about using the rules we learned to make cool situations. So the very basic one, if you had a Relentless Banner or if you're just close, is to run up and then throw it in such a way that you can hit multiple units, right? Oh, look, I hit 2 units. Easy enough. I mean, if there was more units there, if there was a chariot here, you could hit multiple ones, if you can see here. You just got to clip the corner of the barbarians, and if you really need to, you could start from over here, and then you have even more lateral distance to hit a bunch of things. Easy enough. That's probably the most simplest one. Run up and throw it at a bunch of shit. The next one would be if you can get around the enemy a bit, right? So let's say you throw it from here, for example. If you throw it from here, if you roll 6, you're going to hit 2 units. But because of the extension of the 1 inch, it's going to... So if you roll high enough, you'll hit the warriors. You need a 9 to hit the warriors. But let's say you have units down here. You could throw this, and honestly, as long as you rolled a 3 and not a 2, you would hit this unit. You might hit this if you roll high enough, but no matter what, the Mad Git's going to extend its move until... I use these white things to represent 1 inch. So it'll move all the way to here. And so now you end up with a Fanatic that could possibly hit 3 units. Probably good chance it's going to hit 2. Other than rolling double ones, it's going to hit this one. And then it lands in front of the warrior unit, which makes it annoying because if you have your army down here, the warrior unit charging might have to run over it. So you might actually get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 d6 hits just for this move. And you can play with it. I mean, you can, if you want to go more lateral, if you want to go this way. In this situation, it would automatically go to here, but you would never have a chance to hit the warriors on the initial move. But why can't I back up? That's weird. Anyway, but you'd have a better chance to hit this, and you'd auto hit this one. So there, and you know, if things are just even like this, you can just throw it from here, right? And just guarantee that you kind of go here. So that's something to take. If you can get around somebody, looking at angles of like throwing it from up here, and if this was a single model, like you could do something like this and maybe just try to get it to land here or here. Just, you know, throw it back in front of their army. If somehow you Raven's Wing or marched really high up to somebody, you know, you marched like all the way up here for somehow, you could just put it on the side of you and throw it right like back through. Like in this case, I mean, this is a Forsaken one, so let's just, it's probably better in this example to be a warrior block. You know, you do this, start it here, and you're probably going to land, I don't know, like here. And so not only hitting with the initial hit, there's a good chance you're going to be in whatever path they want to move or charge in the next turn. All right, so those are the easy ones. Run up with a banner, run up normally, and fucking throw some fanatics at people. Easy enough, right? Okay, let's go a little bit more complex. Let's a little bit abuse some rules a little more. So let's look at this situation. You're chaffing. Again, this is just to represent 1 inch. This is your chaff. This is the enemy warrior knight. So if you could run your goblin unit here, you have a couple choices. You can just throw it straight through and just hope to hit them. Now the problem becomes if you hit too many, they're not going to be chaffed anymore, blah, blah, blah. What you can do is, like we said, if you do not hit a unit, you do not extend the move, right? So let's just take a look. Right now, this fanatic can't hit a unit. 12 inches is not going to hit these guys. It will no way hit a unit. So if you look at the 1 inch thing, if you roll a 12 with this guy or anything, look at this. He's within 1 inch of this unit no matter what until he's here. 5 inches. So unless you roll, why doesn't it let me backtrack the move of fanatics? It's weird. All right, so if you roll 2, it kind of sucks. If you roll 3, and you could probably set this up so that no roll matters, but man, it does not let me move. Maybe it's because I'm like this. I don't know why it doesn't let me move fanatics. I just have to do it by hand. All right, but anything above a 12, right? Look at this, a 12 to like a 5. It's going to backtrack all the way to here, which means when this knight unit charges the rear of the chaff, if it wants to, it's going to land on the fanatic no matter what. Like there's nothing it can do unless you roll like a 2 or something. I think if you roll a 3, it might hit a 3. A 4 would definitely. So, but this is again abusing the 1 inch thing. You know it can't land anywhere here. You can backtrack it all the way. Like in theory, if you, I guess if this unit was like here, right? Let's just say it was here. You could throw it at such an angle that, you know, if you threw it straight down this line, it would have to stop here, no matter what. Like, unless it went like 2 inches. You'd probably even be okay with 2 inches. But you know what I mean? Like, you've pretty much said that the only distance this model can move is between here and here. Like, it's only between these, like, gaps. Because it can't come all the way out here. So that's very useful. This is more of a, not really setting up this specific situation, like the whole chaff piece, and it's more to say you can use the frontage of units to prevent this. I mean, this also works. We'll see it on the stand shoot. So this is 2-in-1 over here. Well, this isn't this one. This is a 2-in-1 special here. So let's say both these units are charging your 2 blocks, right? You can stand and shoot the goblins this way. First off, easy one. You don't have to stand and shoot at the unit that's charging. You can stand and shoot at the other one in hopes that this runs over this. So maybe this is a war machine. Why is my backup not working? Maybe this is a war machine or something. You know, something that it's probably in this case you want to throw it at this one. But you know what I mean. Like it's a more valuable unit, a character or something. You can throw it to the side and hope that you hit that unit instead. So that's a tricky thing, especially since you can, if they declare this charge first and then they declare this one and then you say, oh, I'm standing and shooting, and then you like fucking throw it this way. If you really want to kill the unit that you're getting charged by, you have 2 options. So in this case, let's bring this guy back. So the normal case that people think about is like, let's just throw it at him, right? Let's just throw it at him. And in this particular case, if you roll a 9, you're going to hit the unit, right? So, and most people think this is fine. All right, I'm going to roll a 9. If I hit him with D6. If I don't hit them, I land in front of them, and I take 2d6. They take 2d6 hits, and that's perfect. So that's, rolling a 9 or above is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, what is it? 1, 2, 3. What's that addition of 1, 2, 3, 4? 10 of 36. So it's like a little less than 30%, or around 30%. That's fine if you want to take that, but let's guarantee you hit him. Let's say you really want to do the 2d6 hits to him. Look at this fanatic right here. We're abusing that 1-inch thing again. It's never going to hit the knights. So if you roll a 12, you're going here, but you're backtracking all the way to here. So no matter what you roll, the most you can go, if you roll it, it's going to go to here. And that means that when this knight unit comes in, it can't avoid it because it can't wheel to miss it. So there you go. Oh my god, back does not work on anything right now. It's broken. So if you throw it at an angle and just make it so it can't land up here, right? 12, 11s, it has to land here, they're going to hit it. There's probably, depending on how far away the enemy is, depending on the angles, there's things you have to do. I mean, technically, you could throw it like, so if you want to be a little riskier, and maybe it's not as big a deal in this case, because I believe there's 6 knights. So 6 knights have to land. So one thing you have to understand is, where does the enemy have to hit you? In this case, 6 knights have to hit you here, which means that we'll just say they're perfectly lined up. If this is the case, they have to come straight forward at you. There's nothing they can do when they maximize. Though I will say one rule I'm not sure of: if units die on the way in, does that change how you have to maximize? But you only get the one wheel. So if you have to wheel, I guess not, right? If you think about it. The only way they can maximize is going straight forward. Or let's just say they were tilted slightly like this. So their first wheel has to turn them to maximize. Anyway, we're not going into that deep of things. That's an interesting question, but not for here. If you want to, you could go like, okay, I'm going to throw it from here. Then no matter what, they're in the straight line path. The problem with this is if you don't clear your unit, which looks like it requires like a 5, you're just going to die because you can't put yourself here. And you can't backtrack anywhere, so you just die. So it's better to do it from the front and try to abuse this corner, like right here, so that, no matter what, it can't land 12, and it'll backtrack all the way to in front of them. So that's that trick, throwing it to the left and backtracking it with the stand shoot. This one, again, it's separate from this one. It's a pretty cool one. It's very unlikely to come up, but I think it's important to understand the concept of what we're talking about here. So let's just say these 5 knights overrun into the rear of your chaff, and it's your turn now. You could move up your knight goblins, and you could throw a fanatic, right, just straight up. And assuming it didn't go too far, and let's just actually make the knights hit like this. It's going to be a little bit easier. I mean, this is like I said, this is a situational one where you have to see it and then take advantage of it. It's hard to set this up. It's just to understand how things work. If it's like this, you could throw up the fanatic, boop, right? And let's just say it lands here, right? Well, because it's a combat, you're going to divide the hit. So let's just, for sakes, you killed 1 knight and 1 wolf. Well, the way nudging rules works, the knights have to nudge. So the knights move up, and then they land on the fanatic. And so the knights now took half of a d6 plus 2d6, and this doesn't get randomized because they moved on to it. It's not a combat. It's not an initial throw. So the knights would take the rest and possibly die. This is more important. This is probably unlikely in this scenario, but one way it could work is let's combine this one. Right, we can combine this one. Let's just say, for whatever reason, you couldn't set up this one, but you could do something where you throw it here, and then it's basically a combination of the two. You could set it up so if you knew this fight was happening, potentially throwing a fanatic, like if this unit was all the way over here, I don't know. and it had to throw a Fanatic because of whatever reason. You could probably throw it like here to block overruns and stuff, or if you threw it like here, you could do the same thing. If the knights kill like 4 guys, it moves on to them. So it's more of a understanding that when models are removed, you possibly land on Fanatics. So you have to understand how models are removed, how the enemy will move forward, and stuff like that. Another one, this is more of a basic one. Let's say the idol charges this. You could throw this Fanatic here, and it would probably land around here, which means if the knights try to countercharge, first the hits will be split, and maybe in this case you're okay with that because the idol wounded on 6s. But if the knights try to countercharge, they're going to have to land on the Fanatic. So this is one I've done a couple times where I'm forced to release the Fanatics early, maybe because of fast cav or something. And if I kill the fast cav with the initial Fanatic, maybe I'll throw the second one. Instead of throwing it at the enemy, let's say the enemy's like super far away. Sometimes I've thrown it like in front of my own models to try to block it. I try to block counter charges with it sometimes. I mean, even if it was the other way around, right? If it was like this, let's say you didn't want to throw it through the fight because whatever reason, you could throw it like up the side. And this is assuming you have to release them. In this particular case, it might not be. But you could like throw it here like preemptively to say you can't flank charge me. I've done it before with like other things. This is more of a situational awareness of trying to throw Fanatics in front of things. But I mean, you do that all the time in other places. I mean, it's one of the bigger rules. Another cool one would be, let's just say somehow you clip them. For whatever reason, you had to clip them. And you had your Fanatic unit like back here. You could throw the Fanatic, through here, try to land it here, so that if they tried to reform, they would have to take all the hits. It doesn't make as much. Again, this is Agricola outcome. It isn't the best one for this, but it's a good example of that. Oh, I forgot a whole other thing. Oh yeah, I got another trick. So yeah, if they want to reform, they're gonna hit the Fanatic. Maybe it prevents the reform. Another good rule to know is that units panic from where the Fanatic is. So, for example, if you think you're going to panic a unit with a Fanatic, or Mad Git, whatever you want to call it, let's just say you have 5, let's just say these are enemy chaff pieces, or the Barbarians, right? Let's just use that. If this is the situation, there's considerations to throw the Fanatic this way, because if you panic them, it'll panic from the Fanatic, which means they're going to run straight off the board. Whereas if you threw it like right behind them, they would panic through you, which might be just fine. Maybe you want that. Just know you can manipulate the way the units move with their Fanatic. If the Fanatic goes off the board, there's no Fanatic alive, so it'll flee from the closest enemy unit, which in this case would be the Goblins anyway. So more of a... If you don't really care where the Fanatic goes behind a unit and you think you're trying to panic them, definitely throw the Fanatic in a way. I mean, it could be a big deal right here. Here's a great, this is probably a good example. If you're like just throwing it near the board edge, if you throw and you don't care where it goes, like, and you're just like, whatever, I'll throw it, this way. This is a good direction because if they flee, they're going this way and probably won't fit. Problem is, if you throw it the other way, it could be bad. And it could, like, actually save the unit because they're going to flee, potentially this way and maybe just run to, maybe not even your army, maybe to a good position. So just be aware. It can block your own units. It can block enemy units, so that's a good one, too. Let's just say for shits, maybe you want to do that because let's just say for shits you run your Goblin unit here and there's a Chariot here and you think you can panic the guys if you throw it over here. Maybe it panics like this, and it lands like in front of this unit, so in his turn he can't charge anything. Or he causes panic checks. That's another thing. If it's an army with low leadership, maybe you can, hit it from the side and make it flee through their army. So it's just good to know that panic checks are from where the Fanatic is and not the unit, unless the Fanatic somehow died through the throw. But yeah, I think those are all the main Mad Gits tricks. As I said before, it's not about when you look at what I did here, don't think about the rules and why the tricks, or not even tricks, the uses work. Especially the 1 inch rule. I think the biggest one to know is the 1 inch rule when you don't hit a unit. Because I think that's the best way to manipulate things, is saying, we all want to just throw a Fanatic at somebody and say, let me do my D6 Strength 5 hits. But there's a lot of value in messing with, like, throwing them in front of people. And to facilitate that, the 1 inch not hitting things is really nice. Not always useful, not always the most useful one, because it does theoretically, unless you're standing shooting, it allows them a chance not to run over it, right? I mean, you could just throw it in front of them and then they say, I'm not going to charge. And then maybe you miss your chance to do the D6 Strength 5. But I think there are situations where you know it's coming and you can get the most out of it, especially when people are in combat and they have to move forward. I mean, let me just do one more example. I mean, it's just like a basic one too, right? I think this works. So somehow, I don't know. What? This orc unit gets flanked. Right? Or rear charged in this case, which is super bad, so we're not going to act like it's good. You could do the same thing where you throw Fanatic, through the combat and land it here. And so if enough orcs die, they're going to have to land on it and maybe take some hits and maybe it's good. Or make it so that their overrun or pursue hits it, right? Make them pay for having to your unit. This is a little more reactive because it has to happen on like an overrun because you have to preemptively put the Fanatics there. But, I mean, there's situations where, like I said with the chaff, where you just, like, this is the one that was up here. Is it still there? This one. Like, this is really obnoxious to put this Fanatic here. Because, or wherever I had it. I had it, like, here, right? Because if the Knights don't charge, if there's nothing else to charge the fast cav, it just becomes this, like, shitty situation where, well, I'm either going to eat the Fanatic or I'm not going to do anything for a turn and the cav are going to be there. Right? So if they can't clear chaff, this could make them pay for it, right? You could make me exactly what I just said. It's just like, okay, this sucks. This really sucks because I'm not going to be able to. If I charge the chaff, I might be losing my unit, but if I don't charge the chaff, my unit's not doing anything and the Fanatic might still be there. It might still hit me. It's just going to be annoying at that point. At some point, like D6 Strength 5 hits doesn't always change the game super dramatically, but it can. The presence of Fanatic in front of an army can just be like, this sucks. I mean, what are you going to do? So use this knowledge, block charges, block counter charges, make stand shoots more reliable. Yeah, a lot of these things, people know the rules. Not all the rules, clearly. But they don't maximize the use of the Fanatic because they, maybe in the stand shoot they can just more guarantee that they're going to run over it, and you have to understand how people line up too, right? If this was only 3 knights, it might not be as effective because the knights have a little bit more wiggle room going left and right, not much. So maybe you do have to throw it down the middle and just hope. But if it's 3 knights, if you throw it down the middle and if they land over one, they're probably in a big shitter anyway. So again, just understand. Yeah. I mean, another big thing I guess you could say, if people tend to throw chaff in front of goblin units a lot because they want to make the Fanatics release, and sometimes you just charge them and say, okay, well, I'm going to kill your chaff with my Fanatics. With my block, I'll just break it, and then you don't have to throw your Fanatics because you're fighting. So, or sometimes you want to throw Fanatics. Just say, fuck it, I'm going to throw Fanatics. I mean, I've sometimes done it where I kill the chaff with something else, and I move my goblins in a way that, like, I couldn't have got, like, this triggers the Fanatics, so I throw it this way, even though this unit's over, like, 9 inches from me, right? So, it's a mind game here. It's about knowing the situation. This is like, Mad Gits are one of the best or coolest situational awareness units in the game, because it really is about game state and maybe trying to abuse something and maybe tipping the balance. And I think Relentless Banner really helped with that, but I think the threat of Vanguard Relentless Bannering Fanatics is not overrated. People are scared of it, and for rightly so, especially if it's like a 45-man unit running at you. I'm trying the 30-man units without Relentless in my current list, and it's more about the fear, right? You put them there, and like if they have them there to be standing shot, you can't just charge them with anything because there's a good chance you're going to just die to the fanatics coming in or be so. Yeah, exactly that, right? You charge 5 knights in and you run over 2 fanatics and you're like, well, shit, man, this is not what was intended when I charged you originally. So there we go. I think I got everything. Hopefully, I don't have to make another video on fanatics. But yeah, there you go, guys. Thanks for listening.